The biggest fight in crypto right now isn't crypto versus government. It's actually crypto versus the banking system itself. Because tonight, we got senators openly accusing the banking lobby of panicking behind closed doors, new language from the Clarity Act that could completely reshape how crypto is regulated in the United States, protections for software developers, new SEC enforcement powers, and reports that Washington is now holding private bipartisan meetings on crypto taxation. Meanwhile, the most important detail might be what's hiding between the lines, the stablecoin battle. Because if banks lose control of deposits, they lose control of the financial system. And suddenly, everything from XRP to tokenized assets to payment rails becomes part of a much bigger war. This content is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Always do your own research before making any investment decisions. Welcome back to Ledger Pulse, your home for crypto regulation, macro shifts, institutional adoption, and the future of digital finance. And today, honestly feels like one of those moments where the temperature in Washington is changing fast. Because lately, the tone around crypto hasn't been, should crypto exist? Now, the conversation is, how do we control it before it scales globally? And that's a massive difference. So let's start with what lit crypto Twitter on fire. Senator Bernie Moreno reportedly said the banking cartel is in full panic mode over the Crypto Clarity Act. And whether you agree with the wording or not, the underlying tension is very real. According to reports circulating online, American banking groups have been aggressively lobbying against stablecoin yield structures and certain crypto-friendly provisions. Patrick Witt also posted that banking representatives allegedly refused to publicly defend their positions during earlier meetings regarding stablecoin rewards and yield policy. Now think about what this means strategically. Traditional banks depend heavily on deposits. They take your money, pay you almost nothing, then lend that money out at dramatically higher rates. That spread is one of the foundations of modern banking profitability. But stablecoins threaten that model because suddenly users can hold digital dollars, move them instantly, settle globally, and potentially earn yield directly through blockchain-based systems. That changes the game completely, and Washington knows it. Now let's talk about the actual legislation. A new 309-page draft of the Clarity Act has been reportedly released by the Senate Banking Committee. And according to early breakdowns, several major themes remain intact. The SEC would continue overseeing many token sales, the CFTC would oversee much of the secondary trading market, additional investor protection language has been reportedly added, there are expanded anti-fraud and insider trading provisions, stablecoin language appears tighter and more targeted, and tokenization wording was narrowed toward tokenized securities specifically. That last point matters, because one of the biggest narratives in crypto right now is the tokenization of real-world assets. Treasuries, stocks, real estate, funds, and settlement infrastructure. The more Washington narrows the language toward compliant tokenized securities, the more it suggests they're trying to integrate blockchain into the existing financial system rather than replace it outright. That's an important distinction. This doesn't look like a government trying to ban crypto. It looks like a government trying to absorb it into regulated finance. Another major development, Senator Cynthia Lummis reportedly stated that the Clarity Act includes protections for software developers. That's huge, because one of the biggest fears in crypto has been the idea that developers could become legally liable simply for creating open source software. That would have been catastrophic for innovation. Now, obviously, we still need to see the final language and interpretation, but if developers receive meaningful protections, that could remove a major cloud hanging over the industry. At the same time, the bill reportedly strengthens enforcement tools for digital asset oversight. So this appears to be the compromise emerging in Washington. Protect innovation while expanding enforcement around fraud and illicit activity. And honestly, politically, that's probably the only framework with enough bipartisan support to move forward. Now here's the part that people still don't fully understand. The stablecoin section may actually be the most important battle in the entire bill. Why? Because stablecoins directly challenge the banking deposit system. If consumers can hold tokenized dollars outside traditional banks and earn rewards and move funds globally 24/7, banks risk losing deposits, and deposits are power. This is why you're seeing lobbying pressure intensify, not because crypto is tiny, but because crypto is becoming systemically relevant, especially after the success of stablecoins globally. And once stablecoins become normalized, the next step is tokenized settlement infrastructure, which brings names like Ripple and XRP back into the conversation. Now, to be clear, the Clarity Act is not an XRP bill, but the broader environment absolutely matters for XRP's long-term thesis. Because if the United States moves toward regulated blockchain-based financial rails, cross-border liquidity systems suddenly become far more relevant, especially systems already designed around interoperability and institutional settlement. Now, another story flying under the radar. Reports say the House Ways and Means Committee is preparing a closed-door bipartisan briefing on crypto taxation. And that's extremely important, because regulation is one thing, taxation is another. Once governments begin focusing heavily on tax architecture, it usually signals they expect the sector to remain permanently. You don't spend this much legislative energy on something you think is disappearing. And this is where crypto is evolving from a speculative asset class into financial infrastructure. That transition changes everything, because once the system starts integrating crypto into tax policy, securities laws, commodities law, banking rules, and settlement systems, the conversation becomes less about survival and more about control. Now zoom out for a second. Over the past few years, we've watched Bitcoin ETFs get approved, major asset managers enter crypto, stablecoin usage explode globally, governments race toward tokenization frameworks, banks experiment with blockchain settlement, and lawmakers move from hostility to rule writing. That doesn't mean crypto won, but it does mean the industry survived long enough to become impossible to ignore. And ironically, the biggest validation of crypto may not come from bullish headlines. It may come from how aggressively institutions are trying to shape the rules now. Because nobody fights this hard over something they think is irrelevant. Now let's address the XRP angle realistically. A lot of people online immediately jump to new bill equals XRP moon tomorrow. That's not how this works. The realistic bullish case for XRP is much more structural and gradual. If the US moves toward regulated stablecoins, tokenized assets, interoperable financial rails, and blockchain-based settlement, then networks designed for liquidity movement and cross-border efficiency become more attractive, especially if institutions prioritize compliance, settlement speed, interoperability, and cost reduction. That's the real thesis. Not memes, not magical overnight price targets. Infrastructure adoption. And honestly, that's probably the strongest long-term argument for the entire digital asset sector right now. So here's the big takeaway. Washington is no longer debating whether crypto matters. They're debating about who controls the future financial system built around it. Banks want influence, regulators want oversight, crypto companies want room to innovate, and lawmakers are trying to balance all of it in real time. But one thing is becoming increasingly obvious. Digital assets are moving deeper into the core of global finance, and the fight over stablecoins, tokenization, and market structure may end up being one of the biggest financial power struggles of this decade. But I want to hear from you guys. Do you think the banking system is genuinely threatened by stablecoins? And do you think the Clarity Act helps crypto or quietly pulls it deeper under institutional control? Drop your thoughts below. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Welcome to the future of finance. And as always, we'll see you on the next one.